Players, gather around, gather around. Degenerate Dragon here, welcoming you to another whirlwind journey through the glittering labyrinth of casino secrets. Today we're talking about the boogeyman that once gave every pit boss in Vegas the cold sweats, card counting. More specifically, how a few brainy gamblers and mathematics wizards conquered the blackjack tables, winning big until they couldn't. Now, I know your eyes just lit up. Card counting? So that's how I finally pay my bills this month. Slow your roll, players. Let's start at the top. Card counting, in essence, is a system of tracking which cards remain in the deck, so you can bet higher when the odds favor you, and bet lower when they don't. Simple concept, right? But oh, the drama that surrounds this little counting method. Casinos have banned, blacklisted, and borderline hunted card counters for decades. Why? Because a good card counter has the potential to outplay the house, and that, my dear degenerates, is a no-no in the house's big rule book. Let's jump back in time. Picture it, the swinging 1960s. Enter Edward O. Thorpe, professor, mathematician, and an all-around number-crunching genius who wrote a lovely little tome called Beat the Dealer. Thorpe basically took a scalpel to blackjack and dissected it with cold, clinical probability. He proved mathematically that if you adjust your bets when the deck is rich in tens and aces, you can gain a small but significant edge over the house. Small is the operative word, but hey, an edge is an edge, and the house hates to share that advantage. Fast forward a couple of decades to the 1970s and 80s. The concept of card counting took on a rebellious, cult-like allure. Sharp-minded gamblers studied various counting systems. Let me break down the most famous one so we're all on the same page. The high-low system. It's not rocket science, but it can feel like it when you're under casino lights with a cocktail waitress hovering behind you. High-low goes like this. Low cards, 2 through 6, are assigned a value of +1. The 7, 8, 9. Neutral, 0. High cards, 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, are 1. Each time you see a low card, you add 1 to your running tally. See a high card, you subtract 1. Keep a mental count going. And I know what you're thinking. Dragon, how am I supposed to do that while the dealer's asking me about insurance and the cocktail waitress is offering me a margarita? Exactly. That's why card counting is not for the faint of heart or the faint of math. Once you have your running count, you convert it into the true count. This part's crucial. You take that running count and divide by the number of decks left in the shoe, approximately, anyway. So if your running count is +8 and you estimate about 2 decks remain, your true count is +4. The higher the true count, the more you bet. Because that's your sign, the deck is loaded with those lovely high cards that increase your chances of hitting blackjacks. Or, at least, push the advantage in your favor. Now, if you think you can stroll into a casino, stand at the table, point your finger in the air, and say, "I can do this," just hold your horses. Step by step, you have to practice. Go at home, deal yourself cards, keep track. Practice converting that count while your dog barks, the TV's blaring, your phone is ringing. Simulate the chaos, because that's exactly what the casino floor will throw at you. Once you're a mental ninja, you walk into the casino with a plan. You start small. Small bets when the count is neutral or negative. Bigger bets when the count is positive. You play it cool. You keep your expression calmer than a Zen master. Because the pit bosses are always scanning the crowd for suspicious betting patterns, like the player who suddenly quadruples their wager right after a bunch of low cards come out. Now, historically, the biggest success story of card counting is that legendary MIT Blackjack team. Picture a bunch of college kids, wickedly smart, fresh-faced, descending upon Vegas in the late 70s and 80s. They used elaborate systems of signals, had spotters at tables counting cards, while the big player would swoop in at just the right moment with fat bets to rake in the chips. They wore disguises, used aliases, ran elaborate audition processes for new members. It was practically a Hollywood script, hence the movie 21. But let me tell you, that story was only the tip of the iceberg. Those MIT masterminds found that with enough brains and discipline, card counting becomes more science than luck. For a while, they made big money. Mountains of it, if rumors are to be believed. But, as the story goes, the house always adapts. Casinos aren't shy about using cat-and-mouse tactics, installing cameras with facial recognition, training dealers to shuffle frequently, using 6 or 8 decks, or even employing weird rule changes to throw off your count. If they caught wind you were systematically beating them, they'd back you off. That's the polite phrase for a pit boss politely telling you, "We appreciate your business, but your money's no good here. Now get out." And if you were particularly brazen or rubbed them the wrong way, you might find yourself banned from the property altogether. Your name plastered on the infamous Griffin book, which was basically a who's who of advantage players. But is it illegal? Here's the kicker. Card counting in and of itself is not illegal. There's no law in most jurisdictions that says, "Thou shalt not keep track of the cards in your own head." The legal, ethical debate is that casinos are private establishments. If they decide they don't like your face or your suspiciously large winnings, they can ban you. They don't need to prove you were cheating because from a legal standpoint, they can refuse service to anyone as long as they aren't discriminating based on protected categories. In their view, a successful card counter is akin to a thorn in the side of the profit margin, and no business wants that thorn to stay comfortably seated at their tables. Now, the meltdown moment, the rise and fall of the casino's biggest fear. Once upon a time, the fear was real and well-deserved. Early card-counting legends could walk in, turn the tables, and walk out with enough dough to buy a small island. But the casinos evolved. Continuous shuffling machines, specialized software to analyze betting patterns, and advanced surveillance that could probably catch me picking my nose from 3 states away. So, these days, the good old-fashioned card counter has a much tougher time going unnoticed. That's not to say you can't do it, just that it's a precarious, high-wire act. One misstep, one too many big bets when the deck is obviously hot, and you'll be on the next flight home with a stern, "Do not return," echoing in your head. Let's address one detail. Some gamblers pivot from the high-low system to more exotic counts. There's the Omega-2, Wong Hov's, Zen count. Systems that assign different values to different cards in search of a higher degree of accuracy. But guess what? The more complex the system, the more mental gymnastics you have to perform at lightning speed. So unless you're a walking supercomputer, or you really enjoy making your brain do backflips under pressure, sticking to the simpler systems is usually the wise move. Now, if you're thinking about giving card counting a whirl, let me share a cautionary tale. Picture me. Yes, your beloved Degenerate dragon, a few years back, sitting in a smoky Reno casino, dabbling with a simplified counting system. I'm feeling confident, maybe a little too confident. The count starts climbing, I raise my bets. The dealer eyes me once or twice. No big deal, right? Then out of nowhere, a pit boss slides over, looks at me with that, "I've seen your type before," stare. Instantly, I can feel my heart racing. I know I'm about to get tapped on the shoulder. Sure enough, about 3 hands later, I get the dreaded back-off speech. "We appreciate your play, sir. We're gonna limit your bets going forward. casino speak for, "We know what you're up to, and you're not welcome to keep doing it here." So yes, I left, tail between my scaly legs, but with a newfound respect for the unstoppable juggernaut of casino security. Don't get me wrong, I still love the game. I just learned that there's a difference between a theoretical advantage and actually getting away with it in real life. Let's explore the ethical side. Some say counting cards is cheating. Others argue, I'm just using my brain against your system, and the debate rages on. The law generally sides with the counters because you're not using a device or marking cards. But ethically, casino operators have entire teams dedicated to analyzing your play. They're not exactly in the business of philanthropy. So from their perspective, you're gaming the system in a way that threatens their bottom line. From your perspective, you're just exploiting a crack in the house's armor. It's almost like a weird symbiotic dance, both sides watching each other, waiting to pounce. And historically, there have been extremes. Take Ken Uston, a legendary counter who had multiple lawsuits with casinos over being barred. He even won a case against Atlantic City casinos, though the aftermath led them to adopt rule changes that neutralized a lot of card counters' edges. That's the vicious cycle. A card counter or team emerges. They exploit a strategy, they make headlines and big money, and the casinos respond by changing rules, adopting better technology, or increasing scrutiny until that edge all but disappears. By now, you might be wondering, oh, Dragon, is it even worth it? Honestly, it depends on what you're after. If you're an adrenaline junkie who loves the intellectual challenge of walking the razor's edge, by all means, study up. Just don't expect to waltz in and out with thousands in winnings every weekend without drawing serious heat. The house may be beatable in theory, but they have more resources, more cameras, and more ways to politely show you the door than any other business on the planet. Even if it's not illegal, it sure can feel like it when the suits are escorting you out. However, advanced surveillance tech is now the norm. Eye-in-the-sky cameras don't just record your face. They can track your betting patterns, how you vary your wagers, even how often you take insurance or stand on soft 17. Some casinos sync that data with software that flags suspiciously successful players, or players who follow certain patterns, correlating bets to the changing count. And the moment they tag you as a possible counter, guess what happens? Suddenly your dealer is replaced by a more vigilant one, or the shuffle frequency increases so you can't count effectively. Or the pit boss hovers in that creepy way that says, "I'm on to you, buddy." At this point, you may be thinking, Dragon, you've painted a grim picture for the aspiring card counter. Maybe so, but remember the golden rule. If there's a flaw in the house's system, someone, somewhere, will try to exploit it. Even after all these years, the concept of advantage play hasn't died. It's just gotten more complicated. Teams still pop up. They might rely on code words, secret signals, phone apps outside the casino to share counts. The cat and mouse game never ends. Just like me chasing that next big thrill. And if we take a big step back, we see the cyclical pattern. The gamblers figure out a cunning strategy. They make waves, the casinos clamp down, the strategy evolves or fades, and then something new pops up. Card counting is the mother of all advantage plays. It taught us that the house isn't always unbeatable, but it also reminded us that the house has the power to change the rules or show you the exit. Ultimately, the story ends with the gamblers thinking, "We had a good run," and the casinos thinking, "We'll sleep better tonight." So, players, if you're reading the legends about the MIT team, or you're fantasizing about beating the house at its own game, just remember, The glory days of card counting were real, but the house got smarter. They didn't change the laws, they changed the playing field. You can still attempt it, if you've got the brains, the nerve, and the willingness to be singled out. But a piece of advice from your scaly friend: if you're going to do it, know the risk. Practice until you can count backwards in your sleep. Keep your cool under pressure, and never, I repeat never, let your ego telegraph your next move. Because in the end, arrogance is the downfall of many a gambler. Now, if this trip down memory lane has got you itching to learn more about the daring escapades of advantage players, congratulations, you might be the next unstoppable force, until you meet the immovable object of casino security. But hey, that's the beauty of the game, isn't it? The tension, the drama, the stories you'll tell afterward. Even if those stories end with, "and then they kicked me out." All right, you rascals, that's the scoop on card counting, the rise, the fall, and the ongoing arms race between math-savvy gamblers and the ever-watchful eye of the casino. If you learned something new, and let's face it, how could you not? Do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this story with a friend who thinks they can outwit Lady Luck, and subscribe to this channel if you want more tales of risk, reward, and rebellious calculation. Until next time, players, may your mental count stay accurate, your disguises fool the cameras, and your love of the game never fade. This is Degenerate Dragon, signing off, reminding you that if you try to beat the house, you better do your homework, because the house is always studying you. Stay sharp, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next roll. Over and out.